Today I'm going to paint you a simple landscape picture just to show you the techniques, and I'm going to start with some phthalo blue. I've coated this canvas with some liquid white to get it nice and slick and smooth and soft, and I'm applying the blue to that wet canvas. So it's actually blending together to create a softer effect of blue. The white is really making the blue lighter because it's actually opaque, so it's lightening the paint as I'm putting it on. This is just phthalo blue and the liquid white that's already on the canvas. Because I want some weather in my picture, I'm going to put a little bit of midnight black. So I'm using the same brush, and I'm just adding a little bit of dark into my sky. I'm going to change to a fan brush, and I'm going to apply titanium white to get some clouds. Plenty of paint, always the answer. If it's not working, put more paint on. And swizzle, which is a very artistic term, swizzle in a cloud shape. Once you've put the shape on, you can then blend underneath the cloud, sinking it into the sky. Twiddle underneath, flick over and across, and you'll get a nice cloud effect. We'll have another little cloud. It's always good to have one or two. Put on some white paint again, swirl it in, mix the white with the blue that's already on the canvas, and you will get a cloud shape. Go back to the bigger brush, twizzle. It's all about twizzling and twirling, flicking and across to get some clouds. And because the technique allows you to have this wet surface, you're building up the picture quickly. And down here, I'm going to add some water. So I'm pulling the strokes in a horizontal way to paint water. That gives you these lovely little lines here, which will look like ripples on your lake. So we've got the sky and we've got water. So we've covered up all that awful white canvas that everybody worries about. And I'm going to get a different brush and mix some colour that's a mixture of sap green and midnight black. And really I'm only just mixing it on my brush so that it's on my brush nice and stippled. And I'm going to put in some distant trees. So tap, 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 tap to get some distant trees into the landscape. And this, of course, is going to go in front of your clouds that you've just painted. Hopefully not your favourite cloud. And it's just about tapping more paint to get some individual shapes of trees and bushes. This technique is all about daubing and dabbing. So if you can daub and dab, you can paint this technique. So I'm just going to get a bit more paint and really dab a shape which might resemble some trees. I think all you've really got to think about is that it's all different shapes and sizes back there in the distance. And as soon as you start putting things on your canvas that cover something up in the background, then everything starts to come together again. So we've got some darks on there, and with oil painting, you're always painting your darks first. So we've painted dark green and, well, green and black to make a dark green. So that's our dark shadow colour. And then we're going to put some highlights on. Now on this painting, our light is coming from the left. So all I'm doing is just tapping some highlights in, keeping each individual little tree separate by leaving that little bit of dark. We'll add some yellow ochre. That was cadmium yellow, but this is yellow ochre, just to change it slightly so that it's got a different feel to it. Tap, 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 tap. Daub, daub, daub. So just bringing in some lights, but allowing the darks to still show. That's one of the reasons that people struggle so much when they're painting, because they cover up all their darks. So this really allows you to really create some light and dark in your picture, but just save the darks basically. We want something for these trees to sit on. So this is the same dark colour, the green and the black. And I'm just going to tap in something for the trees to sit on. And really just dab and dab and tap. Doesn't have to really look like anything at the minute. This is just the darks. Getting the darks in there so that the trees are not floating. There we go, look. Once we've got some darks on there, I've got a different brush for lights and a different brush for darks so that I can paint it quickly. And I'm just going to put in some nice grass. So this is a nice grassy bank that our trees are sitting on down by the river. And we're going to just tap in, and if you can get some little tiny bright bits of yellow in there, that'll look like flowers. Dab, 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 dab. We do want to reflect this colour, so we'll just do again a bit of daubing and a bit of dabbing down here into our lake, and then we're going to reflect that into the water. So we pull straight down, straight down, straight down, straight down, and across, and then that will make that become part of the lake. I'm going to use a palette knife and I'm going to put in a little water line just to show where the water stops and the land starts. Just rub it in. And really this is just a very simple technique to be able to paint a nice landscape that's got quite a lot in it, but it's very simple. We're going to put in a foreground. So we've got our background. This is the foreground. And really, again, dab, 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 dab. Get some darks in there. Always the darks first. And this is the sort of thing that you would do on a workshop. And they would paint a bigger painting than this, or 20 by 16. And people come along and go home with a masterpiece. Guaranteed. And we have a nice time, we have a good time, we have biscuits, cup of teas, cup of coffees. But biscuits the most important. And we'll just dab again, piece of land here in front. And the more paint you put on, the more effects you get. So these little yellow blobby bits may look like blobby bits, but they're actually wildflowers. There you go. We need something to put on the old bushes. So use a different part of the brush. Put in some highlights. So you're giving it some nice colour so your bushes look like they're alive. Palette knife. Can do a lot of things with a palette knife, but you can actually scratch out with a palette knife back to the white canvas, giving it little twigs, and we can have grasses and things here. Finally, we're going to do a little tree. So we'll have a tree here on our land, and the tree is going to be dark on one side, like that, and it's going to be light on the other. So you're just pulling the paint across. So on a one-day workshop, people come along and paint a complete picture following simple instructions that anybody can do. And it really is simple instructions, daubing and dabbing. Most people can daub and dab. And we need to put some, I'm just going to get a little bit of thinners here to make my paint a bit thinner, and put some twigs and branches onto this tree. And give it a little bit of something. There you go. Lots of little twigs and branches. This is perhaps early spring in this picture. So we need something at the base, a little bit of rough grass there at the bottom. And the last thing we can do is give it a little bit of foliage. So each of the branches just wants a little bit of foliage, just to show spring has sprung in this picture. And that gives you that idea of keeping it simple. We don't do any drawing in this technique, so that allows anybody to have a go. This gives you a fantastic opportunity to paint quickly, get a good result in a very short time, and go home satisfied artist. And just do a little bit of flicking down here, get some grasses, just to give it a little bit more detail at the front. And there you go. That's a simple landscape in the wet on wet oil painting technique. Thank you very much.